Welcome to Watch and Learn. We've been progressing through our quilt-along with the Seeing Stars, so stay tuned to see what's next. I'm Kristina Whitney, a Handi Quilter studio educator, and
I'm Kim Sandberg.
Today I'm so excited because we are going to be quilting Kim's quilt-along.
Yes.
The Seeing Star pattern. So we've been seeing the steps along the way over the past few months. Now for the final steps.
Yeah, it's here. And this has been quite a journey. It's been really fun working through this, picking the different fabric, figuring out different ways to piece it, all the fun things, and so quilting. I'm excited to share with everybody kind of my quilting plan today. So first of all, let's talk about a little tip that we both were discussing this that we want to make sure and share with everybody. We both like to do when we finish a quilt top, I always call it my final lap. I don't know what you call it, but just stitch around the edge of the quilt about 1/4 inch in. And we've got Kristina's Seeing Stars quilt here, and actually yours has got a really great example.
Yeah, you can see it kind of here in the black a little bit. I just stitched about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, so it's going to be covered with my binding.
Exactly.
But it holds all of those pieces together, because sometimes when you have piecing that goes all the way to the edge, it can be pulled and pop open.
It opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a tip that we both really recommend. It helps you keep your quilts more square too, because the edges are less likely to stretch, especially if you do have some bias pieces. I can't talk today. Bias pieces along the edge, which depending on how you decided to cut out your quilt, you might actually have some of those around there. Yep. So that's my first tip with this. The next thing was picking my backing. Now, I like to just use up the rest of fabric from projects. Once I'm done with a project, I'm done with the fabric. I really didn't have leftovers of the fabric that's in here because I used a fat quarter stack, and I used everything up. I think I've got strips for like 2.5 inch strips that I'll probably use in another project. I think that's all I have left. So I went through my stash, I found some fabric, and I tried to figure out how to piece it together. So let's talk about backing and how we want to do it. Now you guys will all notice right here, I've actually got a seam that's going vertically, and we always talk about this. You want most of your seams to be horizontal to the pole that you're going to roll your backing on. But if you have to do some vertical seams, you can do a little bit of planning. So because my quilt is smaller, it's only 9 blocks, so it's 3 wide and 3 long. It ends up being, it's like 54 inches, I think. I didn't say, somebody else can double check. 54. 54, is that what I said? 54. So I took, it was wider than with the fabric, so I found some fabrics. I love this one right here, is actually a fun memory filled. I made a dress for my daughter when she was really little out of this one, and I've had it in my stash for forever, so I decided to put that on the back. Found some other ones. But I planned at the bottom of the, farther down, which actually we can show you right here, I have a big seam that does go all the way across the quilt. And I made sure that I loaded it so that was more down to the bottom as I rolled it. I had that seam going across, and then this seam is more to the top, so as I rolled it up, I didn't have a lot of it with that vertical seam, making things a little wobbly. Yeah. Plus it's a little bit of a smaller quilt.
Yeah. So we do talk about, trying to keep the seams vertical.
Yeah.
If you have a really, really crazy back that's just pieced like crazy, you're going to have seams going every which direction, but it's going to be kind of evenly dispersed throughout the whole quilt. So it's going to be okay to use that. Whereas if you have like just 2 pieces and you have a seam going all the way down the middle, that's where you're going to really have those issues.
Yeah, especially if it's a bigger quilt. This is a smaller quilt. It's 54 inches square. So we're able to make it work. And I made sure that I had my extra fabric here along the sides. I think actually, is your episode going to be next week of you quilting? So Kristina's going to have some other tips on backing because yours is a kind of a tight fit.
It's a very, very, very tight fit.
So be sure check next week. Watch next week to see what she's doing. But I've got my extra here. I went ahead and loaded everything. I am making mine as a wall hanging. So when it came to choosing batting, I decided to do 2 layers of batting, which you can see here. And I am actually using bits and pieces. You can see here that I've got some pieces here that go here, but I've got an 80-20 on the back, and then I've got 100% wool on the front. So it has a little more loft. The 2 layers also makes it so that it'll hang a little better, a little flatter and straighter. With all this great real estate of the solid to quilt on, I really wanted my quilting to pop.
Yes.
So that's what I decided to do. My next choice was thread. Looking at this quilt, I was thinking, oh, I could do all these different colors and everything, but I'm just doing green over the whole thing. I thought about actually putting something sparkly maybe in here, but the green actually provides a nice contrast, I think, and everybody will see that. So I'm using, it's so fine, it's a lime green, or let's see, I'm trying to think some of the avocado green. What's this color?
Baby poop green? Inappropriate, I'm sorry.
We'll call it avocado green. Avocado green. But it does just blend with it so that you see the quilting, but the thread isn't really popping out. And it does actually blend really well with everything else. But I did choose So Fine because I'm going to do some tighter quilting, and I just want that thread to kind of melt into the fabric. I don't want it to really pop. So.
Yeah. Now you've got my brain thinking about thread for mine.
Thread for
I'm
yours.
like, oh, what thread am I going to use?
I know.
So, okay.
Well, you've got some fun options there. It'll be exciting to see what you choose. Yeah, I drew the short straw here and got to quilt mine first. So I'm making all my decisions, and then Denise and Kristina are both going to get to learn from my mistakes and then move on from there. So I went ahead and got this loaded, and as you can all see, I have actually basted this in place. Now, this is a step that you don't have to do, but the biggest reason why I did it is because here in the studio, we may load something, and like within a few hours, I might need to take it off to put something different on for a class or for testing. But I also did it because I wanted to make sure that I kept everything very straight as I was quilting through this. As we talked about before, there's a lot of bias in this quilt, so it has a little bit of a tendency to stretch. And where this is going to be a wall hanging, keeping it really straight and square is important. So if you look, you can see I actually used channel locks, and I went across the quilt, making sure that I maintained that distance and I kept my seams lined up as I went through. So everything's nice and straight. So we can go ahead and start quilting. And I will, if I remember, pull the basting stitches out before we quilt. So that's help me remember. But if not, they're in a different color thread, so they'll be easy to see to pull out. So let's talk designs.
Okay.
So,
because the design kind of determined what we're quilting on today.
Yes. So to start with, I went to ProStitcher.com and checked in ProStitcher patterns, and we actually have a collection of designs there, the Seeing Stars collection, and I picked a few of the designs, and I took a picture of my quilt, and I took it into Designer, and I put it as a backdrop, and I created a layout thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to quilt it. And then I started quilting, and I changed my mind. So
that's always the case, right?
We actually were talking about this. Should we quilt these quilts the way that we do normally with like making sure that we're teaching something, or should we quilt them the way that we really quilt? You guys are getting the way that I really quilt. I will make a plan, and then it gets changed along the way.
Yep.
So I started laying things out, started quilting, and realized I wanted to change a few things. So let's go ahead and pull the machine over, and I can show you guys what I actually ended up choosing and doing, and then I'm going to walk through some of the stuff that we did here.
Well, let's talk real quick about what machine we're on, and the frame and the setup and everything.
Yeah, you guys will notice that we are not on the normal Mara 20 that we usually quilt on. I wanted to be able to quilt 18-inch blocks in one pass, and we've got the Infinity in the studio, so Kristina was actually one, she's like, why don't you just quilt it on the Infinity? I'm like, why don't I?
Yeah. So we're actually in the education studio today rather than the filming studio.
Yep.
And on the 26-inch Infinity. This is I call it the Papa Bear.
Yes, yes. It's the Cadillac of the line. It has everything.
Yep.
That 26-inch throat space. And I am on a Gallery 2 frame, so it's the bigger, beefier frame. But the best part is I can quilt those 18-inch blocks in one pass. I probably could have eked this out on my Amara 24, but the Infinity just gives me that security of knowing. Absolutely, I can stitch it.
Yep. And you're in Clearview.
I am in Clearview. The reason why I loaded in Clearview is because that's the way the frame was set up when I started loading. Heaven forbid I have to change anything. I just went ahead and loaded it that way. Okay. So yeah.
And again, you've already basted the entire thing, so that's why we have nothing on the bottom pole.
Exactly.
It's
all up here.
All 3 layers are already together on one pole.
Yep. And I basted about 4 inches apart all the way through. I do have my glide foot on. I actually had a little incident. Do I dare show everybody?
Do it. This is real life quilting here.
Real life quilting. I don't know if we can really zoom in right here. Do you guys see? I put a big, huge hole in the quilt. I was actually had the micro foot on here, and I was probably talking to somebody and moving the machine at the same time, and I caught it, and it just, yeah. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of some fixing on that down the road. Yep. Kristina, you have some bone ash I think you're gonna bring in for me, and we'll see if we can.
Yep. We'll do a little surgery.
Yeah.
Some cosmetic surgery.
We might
facelift.
We might just do a lot of extra stitching right there to hold everything in place. Maybe I'll make a little patch, maybe I'll make a little avocado to go with the avocado green.
Ooh, that could be fun.
That could be really fun. So
lots of ways to fix those.
Yeah, you will notice that I have the glide foot on. I'm keeping the glide foot on for the rest of this quilt because I don't want to run into any of that again. So, okay, going back to the designs that I chose. So, if we look at the Pro Stitcher screen, I can go in and show you guys. So File Design Open, and I have all of these designs. You guys can see these designs here. These are the designs from ProStitcher.com. This is the Seeing Stars blocks. Now there's a couple of blocks in here that I have already modified. Here's a quick video showing you how I did the modification of the design I'm going to open. I actually took this design right here, the triple pinwheel block, and I turned it into this one here, the triple pinwheel block with an echo. I did that in Designer, so check this out and you'll see how I added that echo. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and open this design. And I'm not sure I mentioned this. I said ProStitcher.com. You'll find these designs under, there's a new tab on ProStitcher.com called Patterns. And that's where you'll find the digital quilting designs.
And those are designs that you can purchase. You can download them onto your computer, your tablet.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. It's, yeah. So here's my design with my echo around it. And I am going to put this one in this big on point block right here. And this was one that I really lucked out on. So I'm going to set up an area. I'm just going to go ahead and select the area tab and bring the machine clear pair to the top. Now, instead of putting it right in the corner, I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm actually using the opening on the glide foot, and I'm putting the opening, the little circle down at the bottom, I don't know what else to call it, so that it just lines up, it just touches the edges of that seam. So it's in, what, maybe 1/8 of an inch?
1/8, 1/16 of an inch, like just a little tiny bit, but
Just
enough to keep your design from hitting the seam.
That's exactly what I want to do. This is a really big block, and so I want to make sure that it is not going to shift a little bit while I'm quilting. So I'm going to just give myself a little bit of wiggle room on my area. So let me go ahead, and I'm only going to do points at the 4 corners. So we'll come back up to this corner here. So I will only have 4 points in this. And then to just pop it in here, when I originally stitched this out, I was able to use skew, but that was before I had the echo added. So, but let's see if it works.
Let's see what happens. This is what we do at home.
I know. So,
trial and error.
Whole world quilting. Select skew, modify tab skew on the ribbon, and then I'm going to hit skew over here. And oh, look at that.
Oh,
I actually
beautiful.
found that if I did the border skew,
Splat.
that is not what I want to quilt. This right here, that's what I want to quilt. It looks really great. So I'll go ahead and baseline this.
So I'm a little bit jealous right now that your design skewed in there so well. I have the hardest time with my design skewing into on-point squares.
No.
Something about the shape and the designs, they don't always want to play nicely together. So
yeah,
we'll see what I end up using next week.
I know. Well, and I honestly, okay, so I've got to pull out my all my lovely basting stitches that I put in yesterday. I didn't think that skew would work, and so I was very pleasantly surprised. I think it has to do with the fact that this design is actually already oriented in the diamond configuration. Is that, am I saying that right? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And so it popped in there really well. I think it's also because I did not put in tons of points. I only did 4 points all the way around.
Okay, I'm going to do some playing next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
See what we can come
I
up
know.
with.
We'll see what you can do.
At home, if you have issues with it not fitting in, using skew, just use all those other tools that we have available under modification, the align, resize, all of those. And you can also take stuff into Designer and really make it fit that area.
Yep. And one of the nice things was this design was created for this quilt. So Emily, who's the designer at Pro Stitcher Patterns that created this design, she made it the size to fit this. So there's not a ton of, if you do have to go in and modify and do everything, it's actually still going to fit really well. So let's go ahead and stitch this out. So we'll go to Pro Stitcher Quilt, and I've got my start and end points turned on so that it will do
So Kim, why did you decide to do the echo?
I just felt like the design needed a little more quilting, a little more to make it pop. The other thing I want to do is I'm actually going to come in and add lines in here, like piano keys on each edge facing in. So it really makes this pinwheel pop, because this is the quilting. When you look at this quilt when it's done, this is the quilting you're really going to see. So let me show you the next thing that I did. If we go back to the screen, okay, I'm going to baseline this design so it holds the size and everything. I'm going to go in and clear this area. One of the cool things you can do in Designer is you can actually create areas. So I used this echo to create an area. So let's go in and I'm going to open an area in my folder here. Let me see if I can find my, there we go, right there. So I'm going to open this, and then we're going to do a little bit of modifying, because I've got to make it the same size as what I've got there. So, okay, the first thing I need to do, I'm just going to center the machine right over the top of this, and then I'm going to go in and select my area. It just turned green, so I know it's selected. And then in Modify, I'm going to go to Reposition, and I'm going to center it. And then we'll do a zoom to area so we can really see what we've got going here. You can see that I need to do some resizing on this. So we're just going to go in, choose Resize, and I'm going to turn on my lock so that it resizes equally.
This is going to be tricky because you skewed it.
I skewed it, but it shouldn't have had to skew a lot. I mean, look at how that area is lining up.
Pretty good.
It's actually lining up pretty well. I'm trying to see. I think I need to do just a little bit of repositioning. Maybe just a hair of...
just that fine tuning.
Yeah. I think I need to make it just a little bit. Let's see if I move that side back over. It might be off just a hair in a few places, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's minuscule.
Exactly. I'm going to turn my lock off, and I'm going to make it just a tad wider. And maybe... Okay, so this is when it starts getting really fussy. You just kind of move things around. You know what? I might need to rotate just a hair. And be really careful here. You can go down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to make that even a little bit finer so I can turn that just a little bit, reposition that up. We're going to resize it back down just a little bit. I'm feeling pretty good about that. What do you think? Does that look pretty good?
It's looking pretty good.
Okay, I'm going to scoot it down.
You're going down the rabbit hole now.
I am. Sorry. Okay, so I've got my area set up. Now, what I'm going to do, and I'll just stitch one side of this so you all can see. I'll come back and stitch the rest of it later so I can show you the other sides. But, so what I want to do is unselect that area. So I'm just going to tap the screen. And then we're going to go in and open a piano key design. Okay, the design I want is in the continuous lines folder from the PS Designs folder, and it's called a double stitch single line piano key. And it's because it goes in and out, and you guys can see it there on the screen. It just looks like a line going in and out. But that way, I'm not going to have any extra stitching along the edges of the area.
Okay.
Okay, so it'll just come up to the area, it'll touch the area, and then it will stitch back out. So I won't get a lot of overstitching. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring this up here, and then we're going to do a bunch of repeats. But first of all, the width on this is 1/2 inch. That means that the gap between each one of these piano keys is going to be 1/2 inch. I want mine to be 1/4 inch.
Okay.
So I'm going to go into Modify and Resize, and with the lock on, the width, I'm going to change this to 0.25 because I only want the width to be 1/4 inch wide. That way, as I go through, and we'll baseline that really quick, if I go in here to repeat now, and there is exactly 1/4 inch between each one of those lines. Am I making sense, Kristina?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to make a nice long line of this. That's, let's see. I'll do 12 inches of it. I think that'll be enough. I could actually do a quick check. If I come here to the edge of my area, do measure, and then come down to my other corner. I love using measure.
It's a great tool.
Yeah, it's 12.34. Okay, so I need to make it, I'm going to actually make it then. Let's go ahead and go to 13. And I'm looking at my width right there at the top.
Perfect.
So that I know exactly how long that is. Okay, so I did a quick double check on that. I'm going to go ahead and baseline this design. Now, I'm pretty sure this is going to need to be a little bit taller, but we'll deal with that in just a minute. So I need to rotate this. We'll go to rotate, and I want it to be so that it will stitch in from the edge like this to into that area. It's gonna, so the outside edge along here between the start and stop point is going to be the outside edge of my block.
Okay.
Still making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm wondering, just something that might be visually appealing to our viewers so that they can see a little bit more. What if you used the mark feature and marked your area?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
So they can see what, or not your area, but your block.
That's a great
idea. So they
idea.
can see what the full block is on the screen.
So I'm going to go in here, and you know, mark is such a great feature when you want to essentially have a second area when you're still working with one area. So I'm going to show you guys here.
And it's just for the visual appeal,
it's just for the visual
on the screen. It doesn't have any of the functions that a real area would.
So you can see there that I want to fill in everything along that one side with it. And just a note, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change directions right up here at this top. Because as you can see, I've got that very top part of the design doesn't go clear up to the corner. So I got to pick a point where I'm going to change my direction. So I'll have these ones going this way, and then we'll go the other way on the other side. Okay, so we can see that these are not deep enough to get all the way in there. So I need to do just a little bit more resizing. We'll go into modify and resize. And then I want to do, I'm going to go to my original height is what I want to change.
Okay.
No, my original width. Okay, so if I choose just the original height, you guys can see that it's making it taller. It's actually working off the original
the
dimensions.
Orientation?
Yeah, the original orientation. So I can kind of move this in here. We'll see how deep I need to make this.
Look at it grow.
Look at it grow. I just want to make sure that it's going to go all the way into this little gap right there. So let me pick the right design again. You can see that I need to make it just a little bit deeper. Okay, now at this point, we're good here. This is going to be big enough to work on everything. So I'm going to baseline, and then I'm going to save this design because I'm going to use it again and again and again here. So we'll go to File. We'll do Save Selected. So I'm only saving this design. And because I've got all of these designs on a USB, I'm going to put it right here. And that title's fine. We'll just save it there. So then I can just quickly open that and reuse it.
Perfect.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm all set up with the angle I want to be. Let's go into Modify, and I'm going to rotate this just a little bit so it's just a little bit straighter to that line. Okay, that's perfect. And then we'll reposition it just a little bit farther in here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and crop here. So, watch what I'm doing. I'm going to crop outside. Actually, I'm going to crop inside. How many of you do that? And I'm going to close my edges, and we're going to baseline that. Now, this is where I have to go in and create a second area. I'm going to clear this area. And I know a lot of you are probably going, this is really complicated. It is, and I know that in Kristina's mind, she's going, I could do this faster with a ruler.
Ooh, hold on.
Huh.
Don't close your area yet.
Okay.
Did you already close it, or
no?
Just great. Okay, let's save that area with all the modifications you made.
Oh, thank you, Kristina.
You're going to be using that again, right?
Yes, I am. So I'm going to save my area. Thank you. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to type at the end modified, so I know that this one is sized correctly. Thank you. That's why we make
welcome.
such a great team. That's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go back into area and clear. And by the way, if I had forgotten about that and realized I should have saved it, I always could have used my undo button and gone back. Okay, so now my design is set up there. It's good, but I need to create my next area. So let's go, and I'm going to move the machine. And like I said, I'm going to want to go straight off the top of this pinwheel. So I'm going to set a point there. Come up along this edge, and I want this outside edge just stitch in the ditch. So I'm using my laser to the needle to get this really nice and precise. And I'm going to come down to here.
So you're just going around your block.
And then I'm going to there. Now, I need to make sure that this is not going to crop away any of that inside stuff that I want. So I'm going to, I set that last point there. I'm going to come out this way. Let's see, I'm going to come, no, actually I want to leave that one there. I'm going to come and go kind of like this because I want to make sure that I'm not cutting away any of that design that I wanted to keep. So this is just making sure that I'm not losing any more of that piano key than I want to.
Add one more maybe.
Do I need to? Okay, right there. So this design is getting double cropped. We can see this here. We'll go into modify, we'll do crop, and we're going to crop the outside this time. And I'm going to close my edges. And then that section is ready to stitch, and it's going to just stitch in and out and create that nice, perfect design along there. I would not do this, just so everybody knows, if I had made the full-size quilt, but because I only have 4 blocks like this to do, I think it's worth the time.
Yeah, and yours is going to be hung up, it's displayed. You want to show the quilting on this one.
Exactly. One note here, you guys may notice that my start point is actually down at the bottom. I'm going to swap that and then baseline again so that it will quilt from the top to the bottom. So we'll go up to Pro Stitcher tab, quilt, and we're going to go ahead and stitch this one out.
And I love that you are using your hands and just kind of helping to manipulate that fabric so that it's stitching right along that ditch.
Yep. Don't be afraid to get your hands in there to make sure that you're hitting your marks.
Just make sure that your hands are far enough away from the needle.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly the look I was going for.
Oh, this is going to look so good.
Isn't that cool?
Now, when we were talking about this earlier, you mentioned that you're not going to have to do your stitch in the ditch either because this is going to stitch in the ditch for you.
That's exactly right. I am killing 2 birds with one very nice stone right here.
So I usually go in and do all my stitch in the ditch and then realize that I really didn't have to do all of that. I just wasted a lot of time. So thinking through your steps beforehand is
it's important. Idea. It's really important. Yep. Okay, I'm getting, this is matching up. This is definitely a design you don't walk away and just let it stitch. You kind of sit here and babysit it a little bit. If you need to, you can always slow your speed way down too so that you have a little more time to manipulate things if you need to.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of pressure on the quilt helps it land exactly where it's supposed to.
And you can do this exact same thing using rulers.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't suggest free motion to get those nice straight lines, but yeah, there's options out there.
There are lots of options out there. Ooh, I've got a little overstitching here that I didn't catch. I'm gonna pay attention next time and make sure that I don't get a little bit of this overstitching going there. Okay, look at that. That is exactly the look I'm going for. It's really going to make this center pinwheel pop.
Yes, especially with that echo that you did.
Isn't it? Isn't that great? So, you know, to me, this is just taking a really great design that somebody else created and just making it pop, making it look even better.
I love it.
Okay, so let me show you my next design, and I'm going to just We'll just go in and clear all. I'll come back and finish up the rest of that later. So my next, the next ones I wanted to do, I wanted to put part of this design inside each of these pinwheels. And there is a design in the collection, but it didn't quite fit the way I wanted it to. So I went into Designer and I modified, and I've got two different modifications. So I've got this one here, and you can see that the bottom one underneath is more curved, the bottom pinwheel blade. I don't know what we call this.
Blade's a good
Yeah.
word.
And then I have this one that's more pointed. I decided I like the more pointed one better. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that one up. And then we're gonna place it in this block right here. And I'm gonna show you a trick that I do when I'm custom quilting to quickly place blocks as I go along. So we're gonna go to the area tab. I'll set up an area right here. And I'm gonna do just a 3-point area. And once again, okay, so on this one, I am making sure that this corner is a very precise point.
Okay.
When I get out to my other two corners, I'm giving myself that little bit of wiggle room like I talked about before. So it's out just a little bit. Now, because I only did 3 points, I can go in and use my triangle skew. But it's not in the right orientation. I need to turn it. So I'm just gonna pop over to rotate. And because I didn't baseline, I will turn it a couple times until I get that start and stop point right there at the top, and then it's gonna quilt out correctly. So we'll go to Pro Stitcher. I am not going to baseline this time, and I'll show you why in just a second after we get done stitching this one. I know. This is actually, I still remember when I, like by accident, figured out how to do this, and I thought I was so brilliant, and I shared it with somebody, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the way I always do it. So.
I think a lot of times we ingrain into people's brains, baseline, 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 baseline. But sometimes you want the features that you're using, those tools, to still be active.
Exactly, exactly. So I did just a little bit of stretching on this one to make it completely fill this area, which I really like. And I am going to come back and do some micro quilting around this. I am not going to do the lines like I did here.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough room for it, but.
And no echo on this one?
And no echo on this one. I want the two blocks to be, although they're very similar, to have a little bit of a different feel. Okay, so this is my trick for quickly popping this into a new area. I go to area, I hit clear.
Ooh, and your screen, your design popped back to its original.
It did, it popped back to its original design.
In the orientation that you'd wrote. Well, kind of.
Well, it stayed rotated the way I had it rotated. But what I'm gonna do, once again, I'm gonna bring this center one right up to that corner. And then I'm gonna give myself a little bit of wiggle room here, and then look at that. It popped right in there for me because when I created an area again, it was in exactly the right place. Now, just to note, if this had been one of these top blades, I would have had to go in and do that rotate again. But because this was close enough to the other orientation, it will just stitch out this way. So we'll go ahead and stitch this one real quick. And then I'm gonna show you what my last design is on this quilt. And I am not gonna use Pro Stitcher.
Ooh,
I know, everybody's
rebel.
I have no idea why it does that. It's done that every single time I've stitched it out. So. All right, so that is all quilted and ready to go.
And you're just going to repeat the same thing on the top two pinwheels? And
Yep, and then that design's done. Now let's talk about the triangles out here.
Okay.
All my awesome triangles. Well, I decided I wanted to do a continuous curve. I'm very inspired by all the continuous curve that you always do. And so I am going to do some continuous curve out here, but I do not want to have to take the time. Could I have went in and created a design in Designer, popped it in here, done all that stuff? Yes. But continuous curve is really fun to stitch. And I'm just going to pull out my basting stitches here. And so I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to do some free motion quilting. But the first thing we're going to do is roll this back just a little bit, because this is clear out here even for me.
I was gonna say, why are you stitching that one? Let's stitch one of these closer.
Well, I'm going to do this one because these other ones go all the way across. And so I'm just going to do a smaller one to show you guys kind of what we're doing. So we'll go to about right there. That's perfect. So I just wanted to show you guys in one of the smaller sections, because you'll notice as you get over here, it's two together. It's two of these triangles back to back. So it's just going to be a bigger section. I'll demo this really quickly here.
Okay.
And then we'll do a time lapse of me quilting the rest of this. I'm planning on facing it. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. Okay, so Pro Stitcher tab, I'm going to turn my gears off, because I don't want squircles.
Being the nice friend that I am, I was over here giggling, waiting to see if you would turn them on. I would have told you before you started stitching if you hadn't.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I do it all the time.
I know, seriously. So I'm in regulated and I'm in cruise. I'm going to set my cruise at about 200, because I'm going to be quilting a little fast, but I want to make sure when I get to those corners, I get that nice stitch. And I'm going to make sure that my stitch ends down.
Perfect.
Now this is the fun part, my path. Let's see if I can do this. When I was quilting this yesterday, I feel like every single time I quilted the path differently.
And it's gonna be different every time, because the triangles are different. And
yeah,
you've seen some of my continuous grid or continuous curve videos, and I'm like, okay, and we're gonna stitch this way, and then I actually stitch. I'm like, oh, we changed our mind.
We changed our path. So if you guys look, if we look right up here, you can see the kind of the pattern I picked. So it's not, I did it so that it kind of crosses over a little bit on the corners. The arcs are a little bit deeper. And once again, could I have done this with rulers? Yeah, but it would take a lot longer. So, and I am doing it around every single seam. So I'm not just doing it in the up and downs, but also the
diagonal?
Diagonal, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the hypotenuse.
I think. Not the hypothesis.
Okay, so let's see if I can do this. I'm going to come across here, and then I'm going to work my way back, and then I'll come down, and we'll see if I can do this without, you know, okay. I'm going to come down and work my way across here. And I missed this one on the way up, so we'll just do that one now. I'm going to work my way across again and down. And I'll come back and catch this one. I'll just come and park the machine up there. But that's my continuous curve that I'm doing. I hope I got all of my seams. And you know, I like it because it's kind of fun. I feel like it's got a little bit of that curvy pinwheely feel that we've got going here. And because these are pretty patterned designs, you're really not going to see them. So that's what I plan on doing through the rest of it. And then, as I mentioned before, I am going to face this and put a sleeve on it, because I am going to hang this on a wall, probably in my kitchen. I actually have a bunch of avocado green in my kitchen. Not avocado green appliances, but
that'd be kind of cool.
I know, it would be, wouldn't it? I did have avocado green in my very first house, but not to the current one. So that's my plan. I'll be sure and show you a picture of the finished thing, but that's my quilting plan. That's what I'm going to do.
I am so excited, and you've got my brain going, thinking, what am I going to do with mine? I might have to change some things. I was going to do continuous curve also, but
oh, you can do it.
Maybe I'll have to be unique. Maybe I'll just get to the point where I'm like, I can't think of anything else
just
today.
Do it. It's really fun.
And yeah, just watching you do that, I'm like, I'm ready. So this is great. I'm glad that everybody's joined us today. And make sure that you post the pictures of your quilt-along. Use the hashtag Handi Quilter sorry, I always say the wrong hashtag. I even write the wrong hashtag. Hashtag Handi Quilter QAL.
There you go.
And make sure you also tag Handi Quilter, and stay tuned for some pictures of some of our wonderful viewers and their quilts that they've done. And make sure you have fun quilting.